The first day passed quickly. Akin spent most of it waiting for Turin to return. Not because anything was wrong. Just because the hospital felt strangely quiet without him. By the second day, he had folded 2 more paper cranes. One sat on the bedside table. The other rested beside his notebook. 3 days. That was all. Meanwhile, hundreds of kilometers away, Turin stepped out of a small cafe and spotted a woman waving from across the street. "You took long enough," she said. "You sound disappointed." "I am." That earned a small smile from him. They spent hours talking. Mostly about work. Mostly about hospitals. But eventually the conversation shifted. "You're doing all this for a patient?" she asked. Turin looked down at the coffee in his hands. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he quietly said, "He's important to me." The woman stared at him. A knowing smile appeared on her face, but she said nothing. Later that evening, her expression became serious. "I think I found someone." Turin immediately looked up. "Are you sure?" "Not yet. But it's possible." For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then relief slowly appeared in Turin's eyes. The possibility alone felt like a miracle. Back in Bangkok, Akin was sitting with his parents when the senior doctor entered. His expression was different. Hopeful. "We may have found a compatible donor." The room fell silent. Akin's mother covered her mouth. His father lowered his head. Akin simply stared. For months, he had prepared himself for disappointment. Now he didn't know what to feel. The doctor continued explaining the next steps, but Akin barely heard them. One thought kept returning. Turin should be here. That night, Turin left his friend's house. Rain had begun to fall. He looked out through the windshield as the city lights blurred across the wet road. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to believe everything might be okay. Akin had hope. A donor might exist. And in another day, he would be back in Bangkok. Back to the hospital. Back to Akin. A sudden flash of headlights appeared ahead. A horn echoed through the darkness. Then, everything became white. Back in Bangkok, Akin folded one last paper crane before going to sleep. A small smile remained on his face. 3 days. Turin would be back tomorrow. He could wait one more day. 3 days passed. Then 4. Then 5. Akin kept telling himself Turin was probably busy. Maybe his trip had taken longer than expected. Maybe something important had come up. Every morning, he glanced toward the door without thinking. Every evening, he looked away disappointed. By the 6th day, even the nurses noticed. "Waiting for someone?" one of them teased. Akin immediately looked down. No. The answer came too quickly. That night, the senior doctor asked Akin and his parents to come to his office. The moment they entered, Akin knew something was different. The doctor's expression held something he hadn't seen in months. Hope. "We found a compatible donor." For a second, nobody moved. Then Akin's mother covered her mouth and began crying. His father hugged Akin. Unable to speak, Akin simply stared. The words felt unreal. After months of waiting, a heart had finally been found. The doctor explained that the donor had suffered a catastrophic brain hemorrhage and had later been declared brain dead. Years earlier, he had registered as an organ donor and informed his family of his wishes. His family had agreed to honor them. The transplant could move forward immediately. Everything after that happened quickly. Blood tests, scans, consent forms, meetings with surgeons. The operation was scheduled within days. Everyone around him seemed relieved. Yet whenever something good happened, the same thought appeared in Akin's mind. Turin should know this. The night before surgery, Akin sat alone in his room. A notebook rested on his lap. After staring at a blank page for several minutes, he finally wrote a single sentence. "You missed all the exciting parts." A small smile appeared on his face. Then he closed the notebook. The next morning, nurses wheeled him through the hospital corridors toward the operating room. Bright ceiling lights passed overhead one after another. His parents walked beside him, holding his hands. At the operating theater entrance, the bed stopped. Doctors prepared around him. Machines beeped softly. But Akin's eyes remained fixed on the doorway. Just once more. Just in case. No familiar figure appeared. The anesthesiologist adjusted the mask and smiled gently. "Ready?" Akin finally looked away from the door. A faint smile touched his lips. "Yeah." Then, after a brief pause, he quietly added, "I'll tell him when he comes back." The mask lowered over his face. And as darkness slowly pulled him under, Akin held on to the promise of 3 days. When Akin opened his eyes, the first thing he heard was his mother's crying. Not sad tears. Relieved tears. The surgery had been successful. For months, every heartbeat had felt borrowed. Now a healthy heart beat steadily inside his chest. His father squeezed his shoulder. His mother kept thanking every doctor she saw. For the first time in a long while, hope filled the room. Akin smiled weakly. Then he asked, "Where's Turin?" The smile on his mother's face faded slightly. "I don't know." Akin told himself not to overthink it. Turin would come back. He always kept his promises. Days passed. Recovery was painful, but successful. Each day, Akin grew stronger. Each day, he expected the door to open. Each day, it didn't. One afternoon, he finally asked a doctor, "Do you have any way to contact Dr. Turin?" The doctor hesitated before giving him a number listed in the hospital records. The moment the doctor left, Akin reached for his phone. His fingers trembled slightly as he dialed. The call ended almost immediately.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again.
Akin stared at the screen. Then tried again.
Your call cannot be completed.
Again. The same message. By the fifth attempt, the excitement in his chest had slowly disappeared. Weeks passed. Akin left the hospital and continued his recovery at home. He bought a camera. Started taking photographs. Sunsets. Crowded streets. Rain against windows. Yet every photo reminded him of someone. Someone who should have been there to see them. Nearly 3 months after the surgery, Akin returned to the hospital, carrying his camera around his neck. Without thinking, his feet led him toward Turin's office. The door was open. For one brief moment, hope exploded inside his chest. Then he stepped inside. A stranger sat behind the desk. Not Turin. Not even someone familiar. "Where's Dr. Turin?" Akin asked. The doctor looked surprised. "I'm sorry. I don't know." The answer felt wrong. 3 months. Nobody knew where he was. Nobody had heard from him. Nobody had seen him. That evening, Akin sat alone in his apartment. The city lights flickered beyond the window. He dialed the number one last time. Unavailable. Slowly, he lowered the phone. 3 months ago, he had been waiting for Turin to return. Now, for the first time, a frightening thought entered his mind. What if something had happened to him? And what if nobody knew where to find him?
What happened to Theron? Will Akin ever see him again? Subscribe to my channel to find out.